Okay, and we are live. Welcome all to this very special edition of NAF Research and Tech Talk, our end of the year edition, actually, for 2022. It's my pleasure to have you on the line here today. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Nick Minar. I'm the Director of Research and Reporting here at NAF, and it's really my pleasure to be hosting this Research and Tech Talk and have you all on the line with me here today. Before I bring out Jax, I'm just going to spend a moment to say thank you for joining us live. As always, we will be posting this talk to our NAF Research and Tech LinkedIn page, to our NAF YouTube channel, and then also to our NAF Educator Facebook page. So if you have to leave early or you want to share the video with someone after the call, that recording will be available. I'm going to drop some links to those web pages I just mentioned, the Research and Tech LinkedIn page, the Educator Facebook page, and the NAF YouTube channel in the chat right now in case you haven't seen those. Furthermore, feel free to say hi in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from today. As I've said many times on these talks, we really like to make a small learning community here where we can interact with each other, interact with our guest here, the content matter expert. So don't be shy to, introduce yourself in the chat and tell us where you're at today. If you've never attended one of these Research and Tech Talks before, that's quite all right. Really, the purpose of these talks is to bring cutting-edge research and best practices from all of you, or for all of you, our NAF educators, our NAF staff, so that you can use that information to improve your educational practice with your students. Because of that, as I mentioned, don't be afraid to ask questions. Feel free to provide comments or questions in the chat, and Jax and I will try to answer them or address them kind of as the talk continues. Or if you would prefer to wait until the end of the call, we will have about 15 minutes of dedicated question and answer at the very end. So however you would like to interact with both of us is totally fine. I'm going to introduce our guest here, and then I'll have her come on camera in just a second. Our guest today is Jax Chaudhry. Jax is the Executive Director at Project Invent. That's a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, whose mission is to empower students with 21st century skills needed to succeed not only individually, but have a global impact through innovation and invention. I'm going to drop a link to Project Invent's website in the chat here in case you want to check it out while we're chatting. Really, the goal of Project Invent is to create a generation of fearless, compassionate problem solvers that tackle community and global challenges really head on. I love this mission. I think more of that is needed, actually. Originally, Jax is from the south side of Chicago and loves working with students, families, and partners to ensure that every student can attain success as defined by them. For more than 10 years, she has worked with elementary schools, high schools, and education nonprofits really throughout the country and has led regional teams and operations to ensure student success. In this year alone, Project Invent has served more than 150 student teams across 23 states across the country. I'm really happy to have the chance to sit down with Jax today and have this chat around educator practices for student engagement for STEM identity. Jax, if you want to come on camera and off of mute, I will spotlight you for our audience here. Let me make sure you're spotlighted.
Great.
All right. We can see you, we can hear you. Welcome today, and thanks again for joining us and kind of just giving us the opportunity to hear more about you and Project Invent.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me in, Nick. I really appreciate it. It's always a joy to share more about Project Invent and just more broadly ways that we can support our students for this rapidly changing technological future that we're all facing. So really excited to chat. Yeah.
Yeah, talk about that rapidly changing career landscape, right? I mean, prior to the COVID, no one was working from home, but now that's like kind of an essential part of our daily lives, right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. One of the statistics that we share all the time is actually from a Dell technology study that says 85% of jobs that will be present in 2030 just haven't even been invented or created yet. And so we often think about school as preparing students for the next step, whether that's college, whether that's a future career. And what we're finding time and time again, that just preparing students to do a particular role or particular skills isn't enough. What we really have to focus on is how can we help students become critical thinkers and problem solvers that can adapt to any role, particularly roles and careers that will exist in the future that we can't quite even fathom right now. I think about that when I think about my own story. Starting out on the south side of Chicago, attending public schools and then a private school for high school, and really finding that all of the particular skills that I learned, though helpful, it was really the mindsets
Mm.
that I learned. And when teachers really allowed me to be a co-learner, to really, kind of explore on my own, have that curiosity and ambition, those are the mindsets and skills that I'm using every day as executive director at Project Invent, and supporting students and making sure that our mission is as impactful as possible.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're gonna dump in, or we're gonna jump into that actually, because I wanted to just kind of start our conversation, just learning a little bit more about you for our audience, for our educators who may be watching this afterwards. Um, but I like to give our guests some time on this series just to let our audience know. Oh, let me admit here, just to let our audience know a little bit more about you. So, kind of continuing on that thread, I read your brief bio just before you hopped on screen. But tell us a little bit more about how you got into the space of education and helping students attain their success. Was it always something you wanted to do, or did you kind of take a roundabout way to get to where you are now?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I originally wanted to work in healthcare. So
Mm.
I was very much interested in working in and around and supportive communities like the one I grew up in on the south side of Chicago. So I thought the best way to do that, I saw the healthcare system firsthand growing up. And so I thought, well, I should learn how to become a part of those systems. And so I did. I majored in health policy and law. And immediately after graduation, I did a fellowship at Urban Prep, the Inglewood campus in Chicago. And Inglewood is where I have my earliest memories growing up in Chicago. And after that experience, it suddenly shifted, and I saw the impact that could happen with education before you get to the hospital door, essentially. So, when they've done studies, they find over and over again that the more knowledge that a patient has, the more education that they have, the more easily they can navigate those systems and ensure that they can be healthy, right? And so, because of that experience and learning so much from my students and seeing just how important it was to be a part of education, immediately after that year, I started working for a middle school nonprofit. And for the past 10 years, I just haven't looked back. It's just been incredible to see students grow, to see all of the different ecosystems that have sprung up in support of education and preparing for this next future, if you will. And it's really where my passion lies. So I really do feel like I get to do my dream job every day.
That's great. That's like the dream, all young people should have as well, right?
Yeah.
How about getting involved in Project Invent specifically like that with that organization? Was it and kind of being a part of sparking innovation and invention in students to actually solve problems? Was there a specific event or a point in time where you just were like, yes, that's what I want to lean in on? Anything like that?
Yeah, so I have always been interested at this nexus of education, technology, and storytelling. And so when I had these ideas, there really wasn't a role for that, right? And so
Hmm.
there was always the technology space. I was reading about AI. I was reading about different engineering, like revelations, right? But there wasn't really a direct pathway or a direct point between education and the technology spaces at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I focused on the earlier pieces of this of the educational spectrum. So I worked with middle schools, elementary, and then pre-K literacy. So all of the things that feed into the overall educational experience. But from the very beginning, I was always interested in innovation and really seeing what could be possible if we started with students as early as possible, inspiring them to think that they could have a STEM identity, to think of themselves as inventors, right?
Mm-hmm.
I recently saw a film where they interviewed an inventor and she said, well, you know, it's interesting. Whenever you look up inventor, it's someone who doesn't look like me. And it's like, you know, kind of a Thomas Edison, if you will. And so it's really exciting to think of oneself as an inventor, as someone who can innovate and have impact on the world around them. And so when I learned about Project Invent, it was simple math for me. Like this added up to a yes.
Good. That's awesome. And we're going to talk more about what those young people are actually inventing here a little later. But I totally agree, right? When you're thinking of innovation and kind of inventing something new, often the young folks in our society have a novel take that maybe hasn't been seen before. So, very important to kind of spark that interest early. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience about your background or your journey before we kind of dive into some of the work you and your organization are doing?
Yeah, I'll just share that, you know, across my life's path, if you will, I've also often thought about equity and what it means to create equitable learning environments.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a critical part of my experience. So, growing up, having a mother who was African American, being African American, and experiencing education and school environments, it was really startling to me to find myself in spaces where I was the only one, or even when I was a part of a school space where there were others like me. Those learning environments were so starkly different. And so I think a lot about when we say furthest from opportunity or further from opportunity, how can we, in this new future that's forming, how do we over and over again ensure that the learning environments we're creating are also equitable? And so it's my own personal experience, but I've also been really, really happy to build a network of others who are really motivated and, you know, really pushed forward by this, and really found some incredible solutions and practices as well. So just wanted to share a little bit about that too.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. And just as kind of an aside for our audience, Jax and I initially kind of connected over using some open data to try to provide more equitable data outcomes and some other types of outcomes for students all over the place. So, yeah, that was kind of central to how we initially met, and we'll get into that a little more here in the chat. Um, so I did my best here at the beginning, just while I was introducing you, to kind of summarize Project Invent's work. But in your own words, can you just share with our audience a little more about Project Invent and the way in which you all really go about your work with educators, with students, and trying to achieve those positive outcomes for young people?
Yeah. So when we think about Project Invent, it really is being able to offer three things to our broader community. And the first is our open source curriculum. We believe everyone should have access to curriculum that inspires innovation and specifically allows for teachers to begin project based learning and support that STEM identity. So, certainly are always refreshing and adding and really ensuring that our curriculum can meet the needs of our larger community. And so we're actually doing a curriculum refresh this year, looking into translation as well so that we can reach an even broader community. And we offer a Project Invent Fellowship. And this is really core to our theory of change. We believe that in order to inspire the next generation of fearless, compassionate problem solvers, we begin with teacher practice. And so there are 6 key teacher practices that teachers learn through our project event Summer Institute to kick off the year-long fellowship. And during that Summer Institute, they learn those 6 teacher practices and then apply them immediately to inventing for social good. So they meet a community partner, they learn about their concerns or problems, and then they actually map it and ideate and come up with a physical prototype with a technology component, whether it's an Arduino or a microbit, and then they pitch it to that community partner and our project event team. And so teachers get a chance to be innovators themselves as they are then applying and learning what it looks like to connect those teacher practices to student skills and mindsets. And then teachers, educators are launched back into their classrooms for the school year, and they may do it for a year or for a spring semester, offer it as a course to their students and build a student team that will then do the same process. Meet a community partner, learn their challenges or concerns, and then alongside with them, so not for them, but alongside with them, to then create that physical prototype and then pitch it. And you can imagine that experience is very exciting for students who may have found themselves always in a classroom where they're listening or taking in information. And this is the first time that many students may find themselves actually able to lead. And so we truly love what we do here at Project Invent and presenting that third piece, which is the student demo day.
Great, great. Yeah, I had the opportunity to look at some of the videos on YouTube for that student demo day, and to our audience, feel free to check them out as well. So just to kind of summarize, there's kind of 3 pieces to the project, right? Kind of like the educator and kind of prepping, a little bit doing some PD and learning about how to maybe lead students or work with students to tackle that project. The students kind of forming the prototype or the solving that problem in conjunction with a community partner, right? Would you say those are kind of like the 3 pillars of a Project Invent project?
Yeah, so the fellowship itself, those are the 3 pieces, is
Okay.
that Summer Institute, and then actually putting it together with student teams and meeting a community partner, and then pitching it at Demo Day X.
Great,
Absolutely.
great, great. And you said that process tends to take about a full year, right?
Yes.
For that
So
fellowship?
yeah, we've seen it both as a year, and this year we're actually doing a spring semester model. Many of our
Great.
schools shared that that was a great way to get more students involved, and so we fully supported that. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We'll dig into that in just a second when we actually talk about some of the projects, but I just wanted to throw out some statistics here for our audience and kind of prepping for this talk, on the website that I had linked previously to Project Invent. I just wanted to throw out a few statistics here for us to kind of talk about and just, have in the back of our mind. It said that 75% of the Project Invent collaborations are with public schools. So it sounds like you all kind of gear more towards public schools. 57% of the student teams that Project Invent works with are located in Title I schools. So that really speaks to, that topic we already really hit on, providing those equitable opportunities to those communities that may be traditionally underfunded or traditionally underrepresented. And then the third statistic, last one here, 61% of students participating in your work are traditionally underrepresented, even in STEM areas. So again, kind of trying to help those underrepresented students become represented in STEM specifically. So with those 3, statistics in mind, obviously we talked about a desire for equitable opportunities for students to explore, their STEM identities and try to perform work of value in a project of value with their community. Is there anything else you want to speak to why that equitable piece is so important for Project Invent? It's very important to NAF in our own work, and anything else you'd like to touch on with how you're going about offering those opportunities?
Yeah. So certainly we hope that, even as I'm chatting today, if there are principals or educators who are listening, who are at Title I schools or public schools, we invite you to connect with us because in our belief, project event and the experience that's offered can be most beneficial. And we see incredible results when students are coming from underrepresented backgrounds, and we see that mindset shift from I'm not sure about STEM, or I don't really see myself as an inventor, to actually hearing, I do see myself as an inventor. I see that it's possible for me to have impact within STEM, within my community. And so we think a lot about going to schools and places where those opportunities may not be readily available, and really being that answer. And so I think about my own experience, going from a public school on the south side of Chicago to going to a private high school. And it was such a direct, very startling kind of mindset shift, where I was being asked my thoughts and asked to think critically, where before it was more rote memorization and really
Sure.
responding to test taking. And so we want to think about, how do we provide this experience in places where students might not always have easy access to an experience like that, or starting to think about other career paths, other roles that they could fill. And so it really starts with presenting that to them and exposure. So I'm really, really excited to do this work and expand to even more schools where students are further and furthest from opportunity.
I love that, because just anecdotally, we've kind of examined that, or not examined, but noticed that kind of confidence shift too, as well, with some of our students after they maybe do an internship, where before before students do an internship, they're maybe a little more hesitant to speak up or express their thoughts and ideas. But after that experience, it's like a light bulb, right? Where all of a sudden they're full of ideas and just kind of providing great insights. So that's wonderful to hear that you all experience that same thing in project and events work as well. Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about Project Invent and how you all kind of approach your work with educators and students, let's actually dig into some of that work itself. So based on what you just told us, Project Invent really seeks to enhance students' problem solving, critical thinking skills by working in the classroom on projects of value with a community partner. So in my mind, that gives projects a very, real world application, providing value for students, educators, and that community partner, because they're all essentially working together on that real world problem. Can you give us an example or two of some of maybe your favorite projects that you have seen students work on with their community partners?
Yeah. So I love to start with an example of a group that developed the beta band. And so oftentimes we have a large variety of community partners, and these students identified a community partner within their own school community. In fact, they're football players. And so they were concerned about the statistics around concussions, and specifically as it relates to the sport that they all saw their friends and peers playing. And so they wanted to be responsive and determine, how could they actually determine if a student was at risk for a concussion on the field. So
Mhm.
not waiting until, it was after the game, heading home, but how could they actually be preventative and actually get onto the field and find out well in advance? And so they did, and they created the beta band, which actually would analyze the waves coming from the beta waves, if you will, from the football player immediately on the field afterwards, and identify if that football player student would actually go, would then need to go and seek additional support from a nearby
Oh,
urgent care healthcare. Yeah. So it's exciting to see students thinking about a community partner that's one of their own peers, right?
hmm
And then it's also exciting to see when we get to bring together two groups. So in Freeport, New York, just this past year, we have a great partnership with LimKind. And so they support those who identify as amputees or no longer have the ability to use a particular limb. And so they brought in one of their community partners to our school in Freeport, New York. It was really, really exciting to see the students connect and learn more from Rob, who came in and shared his own personal story, specifically his resilience of not letting the loss of his leg prevent him from really participating with his community, supporting and having a fulfilling life. But he was very invested into fitness, and it was really difficult for him to work out without
Sure.
his um, his prosthetic actually slipping because of the band around his limb. And so students, they call themselves Team AMP, and they actually created a prototype that would support him while working out. And so, it's always really exciting to hear students get more information and learn more from a community partner, and specifically the empathetic connection that builds by learning from someone who has a different life path or a different concern or issue that they may have. And it allows for teachers to really challenge any assumptions that students have and really encourage that curiosity for them to ask more questions of their community partner so that they can design alongside with them.
Absolutely. I was my colleague Dee pointed out that this work is somewhat similar to some of our youth participatory action research, in that students are kind of co-leading or co-developing that solution, or that work, and it's really empowering, right? Because like you alluded to at the beginning, sometimes public education is just like download mode, study for the test mode, and you may or may not be students may not have as much opportunity to kind of co-lead a project like that. So very important work that I think really highlights what that type of activity can have on a student when they kind of realize they can lead a project like this or be in charge in a project like this. I wanted to ask, how do educators and students that you all work with kind of go about selecting their project of value? So if we have any educators on the call or educators that want to do something like this, what kind of stuff should they be looking for if they're thinking about, starting a project like this with their students?
Yeah. So we feel really fortunate at Project Invent that we've been able to observe three different ways that teachers and students work together to identify a community partner. And so the first is teachers who are part of our fellowship. We do offer the opportunity to be matched with a community partner. And so students, especially at our middle school level, may not have identified a particular issue or topic that they're interested in. And so they are paired with a community partner to learn more about their experience and particular challenges that they may encounter. The second way is that often teachers may come in with a particular nonprofit or a particular cause that they'll share with their students and be able to connect them to a particular community partner. And the third, we talk about that light bulb moment, and that really is, I hope you
Yeah.
can see, that's our Project Invent logo as well, as that light bulb, is when students actually share, I'm interested in learning more about individuals who identify as disabled. I'm interested in learning more about migrant farmers. I'm interested in learning more about folks in our school community who may not be within this class, and learning more about challenges that they experience. And as you can imagine, really the core of our curriculum is talking about design thinking. And so truly, anyone can really share a particular problem or concern that they're experiencing, and get to hear from students particular questions so that students can then solve and come up with a physical prototype for them. But that's that light bulb moment when students identify a particular issue or topic area. It could be climate change, could be concerns about ableism, could be very much very much focused on the unhoused community. And so students come in with the issue, invite folks to come in, ask them questions to determine, can we create a physical prototype that could solve one of your concerns? And so we really love when that happens and really support teachers with a framework about how they might go about that with their students. So my favorite is when I chatted with the student team earlier this year. That's the first thing they shared with me is, well, we were really interested in climate change. So we emailed our local kind of climate activist group and asked them if they would sit with us. So imagine getting an email from a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old,
Yeah,
or even a middle school age student, 12, who's asking and saying, I'm interested in you and what you're experiencing. Can I chat with you with my teacher in my class? And so we
absolutely. That's wonderful. I love hearing that story. Apologies if I froze there for a second. I got an error that I had poor connectivity, so apologies for that. I actually do see some questions coming up in the chat, though, about what you were just addressing. So let me actually turn our attention to that for a second. My colleague Dee says Project Invent works with teachers. I think that is critical to the success of any innovative teaching and learning approach. Can you tell us a little bit more about the extended support that Project Invent provides? So kind of maybe throughout the whole scope of the project or any supports after the project is done?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for posing that, Dee. So we provide a program manager that supports the teacher over the course of the year, over the spring semester, as they are a part of the Project Invent Fellowship. We also provide a materials grant, materials support, and because we know that students really benefit from meeting a large spectrum of different adults who are invested in them, we also pair them with industry partners. So our
Right.
teachers have a variety of backgrounds. They may be a computer science teacher, or they may be an English teacher, a religious studies teacher. And so we pair them with folks from Google, Adobe, all different company corporate partners that we have to be responsive to the design challenges, the physical prototype building challenges, or even pitch coaching. And so we love to connect teachers to a larger, broader community. And we also support them following. We invite them to take on leadership opportunities with us, to actually lead a summer institute with another teacher the following year. And currently, we're building out more professional development opportunities in support of our returning teachers, teachers who have done Project Invent for multiple years, which is really exciting to see.
Sure.
We know that the engagement of teachers and really recognizing them and acknowledging them as the professionals that they are and allowing for more leadership opportunities where they can share their practice and their experience with new teachers coming into Project Invent is really where we see them shine.
Yeah, that sounds like a cycle of continuous improvement as well, right? If I'm a teacher that has done, 2 or 3 projects and I'm paired with maybe a newer teacher who's never done it, that's like a way for us to improve our practice together. That sounds wonderful. Speaking of pitch, I have another question here from one of my colleagues, Alyssa. I was also wondering, she says, about the pitch to educators. I love the idea of students as co-learners. However, as a former educator, there are some stipulations either by state or by district or by building level that may require time on curriculum. Can you tell us about how educators maybe balance that if they're working on a project like this?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And so we really see that teachers will also share with us what works best for them. So we love when teachers are able to present it as a spring elective course or a year-long course.
Okay.
But there are also teachers who choose to offer it as an after-school club, who choose to want to make it available instead of just in their classroom, but will pair with the entire grade team to bring this to all students at a particular school. And really, when we see that, the more time that's given to it, and again, those teacher practices, the 6 teacher practices can really be embedded across the board, allowing for students to have the full year or the full semester to really balance with curriculum by offering it in a way that works best for their school and their calendar, if you will. So that may look like being able to do it across a full grade, or being able to offer it after school, or offer it as a spring elective. And so we find that allows for the time that's needed. And even as they're balancing that, those curriculum needs, those testing needs that we hear often from educators, we find that ensuring that we can offer it in different ways as is needed by the school or the educator, that's how we're able to find that balance.
I love it. Yeah, because education just across the country is a complex enterprise, and now one solution is going to fit all, right? So I'm really happy to hear those unique supports and kind of the ways folks have tried to balance that. I love hearing about that. Thank you for those questions, everyone in the audience. Please keep them coming if you have anything else you would like Jax to address. I'm going to ask you a quick question about kind of STEM identity, right? Because that's one of the objectives that Project Invent is trying to kind of endow, I guess, the young learners and the young students with, is kind of experimenting if they see themselves in that role. So when we talk about kind of STEM careers and working with underserved, underrepresented students of color, right, the hope is that maybe they can explore a STEM identity, see if they want to go into that as a future career potential. What has been your experience with those projects in forms of forming a STEM identity with students? Do you find that students kind of always had that STEM identity, or do students enter a project maybe not thinking or knowing they like that type of work, but then really finding they like it? Can you share any of your experiences there?
Yeah. So across the board, we see students increase in grit, resilience, and that creative confidence. So we see that across the board. But what's most exciting is that we have a sentence structure that we share, and we get these results through pre and post surveys from both teachers and students who participate in Project Invent. And so we have a sentence structure that says, I used to think, and now I think. And that's where we've really been able to see that change for students, where students will say, I used to think that you just had to be really, really smart to be an inventor. And now I think I can do anything. I used to think STEM wasn't for me. And now I think I see myself as being a part of STEM. Right. So we see that in the sentence structure, even if they say, this was harder than I thought. We failed and we had to try again. Right. It was tough collaborating with other students in a team all year. We didn't always get along. That was tough.
Sure.
But we really get to see that change when students have time to reflect in that post survey and say, I used to think, and now I think. And so it makes us really focus on sharing the importance of the experience rather than the
Absolutely.
actual prototype, rather than the actual pitch. When we ask students as well, they share that what's been the best part of Project Invent, and they'll say the process, the experience, trying this and realizing it didn't work, doing the research, staying really late because we wanted to figure out how could we create this to support our community partner. This isn't just something for our class. This is something that's going to have real impact, real change for someone we've gotten to know, or a group of people we've gotten to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of demystifies that process, right? It's not like some mountain you can never climb. It kind of provides students the opportunity to engage in it together. Some of those skills you mentioned, persistence, grit. I mean, I imagine communication, teamwork, presentation, maybe in some cases entrepreneurship are also some of those great skills, and kind of getting students involved in that while they're still in high school. Right, kind of like demystifying it. It is something they can do. It is something they can tackle together. I really like that aspect of the work you all do.
Yeah, I would also share this is the first year that we've actually expanded to middle school.
Oh,
Much
great.
research has shared how important it is to start even earlier, because by the time some students may reach high school, they may have already decided that this
Sure.
STEM identity, being an innovator, that's just something that doesn't apply to me. And so the earlier we can start, the better. And then we're sharing those design thinking principles, engineering principles, and entrepreneurship skills over the course of the project event experience.
That's great. I love hearing that you're already doing middle school stuff, because I remember projects, like kind of inventive projects in middle school, but I wish I had more of it. And this would, make it even more real world application than some of maybe those standalone projects in science class or something like that.
Exactly.
I have another question here in the chat from Dee. She says, are there funders or funding available to help students implement their design to take action on an issue? So I'm assuming, Dee, kind of after the project is complete, anything to kind of implement that design in their community or anything like that?
Yeah. So before they complete the full year, we do offer a materials grant so that every student team has all of the resources they need to actually create a physical prototype. So every student team may not have access to a 3D printer, though I will say it's exciting to see when students win our Demo Day X competition. We offer awards as well as a monetary award of $500 that goes back to their school site so they can actually make sure that they have those resources for the following year and are able to purchase some of those materials. Following that year-long experience, in the past, we've offered a program called Accelerate, where students can then think about, now that they've ideated, created this physical prototype, how might they be able to then actually get a patent and take it to market. And so we are
Wow.
doing refresh of that program this year. So we've paused it. We are doing a refresh of that program, but are excited to bring that back. And we also think about how we can connect our student teams with different law firms that specialize in IP, specialize in patent law. And we've seen some really amazing next steps. One of our teams last year actually just won the ability to have the resource of lawyers at this well-known firm to support them in actually applying for a patent for their technology, their physical prototype that they've created. And so we hope to see more students do that. And so we're really excited to spend time and resources to bring that program back and make sure that it's accessible to all of our students and really allows for students to think long term about what could happen next with their physical prototype and their innovation.
I love that. Wow, what a great support system to kind of help students move their work through that whole spectrum, right? Because it is a long spectrum from start to finish when you think about identifying your problem, you know, tackling the solution, making a prototype, and then maybe trying to patent that prototype. Wow, that's a lot of great support. To our audience, you'll notice I turned on the ability for you to come off of mute or come on camera. We are surprisingly already in the last 13 minutes of the call here. So if you want to come off mute or share your video to ask Jax a question directly, please do feel free to do that. Oh, Fred, looks like you're coming on camera. Hey, Fred, welcome.
I want to compliment the research and tech team, first of all, on these webinars, and especially reaching out to third parties, those who are not part of NAF on a regular basis, because our schools are always looking for third party entities that can provide them with something special.
Well, this is something special here. So Fred, be sure to mention Project Invent and Jax to any of the academies you work with, and we will try to make connections where possible. Thank you, Fred.
I also love that background, Brett. That's awesome. I love a
Anyone else have a question directly for Jax? If not, I'll kind of keep firing some questions at her just to keep the conversation going. But if you have a question or you have anything you want to ask Jax directly, please feel free to come off mute or share your video if you have a question. Oh, looks like Dee, you're coming on.
Yes, I just wanted to kind of face to face or nose to nose say, this is awesome work. I love that students can be maybe not even interested in STEM, but can be motivated by a need, connected to their community, and then realize this has legs and I might need to patent it. I am not interested in law. I mean, so it's so
Yeah.
many different facets that could just kind of strike the right tone with our young people. I love that it all comes together. And as you probably could see from my questions, I'm a big fan of starting with the people that are responsible for doing the heavy lifting and supporting them and helping them build their skills and the skills to support other teachers. I love that. I feel like that is just, it's what gives our good ideas for teaching and learning legs. I did some work similar to this quite a while ago with project-based learning through, and this is going to date me, but don't y'all run out and Google, but through a Howard Hughes medical research
Oh, wow.
workshop where we would bring in teachers for 2 weeks, get them comfortable with the strategies, and then have them bring students on the campus to work through the projects that they designed and that we had kind of been working with them on, and for another 2 weeks, and then to implement it with these kind of champion students who could help them in the classrooms throughout the next year. It really stuck, and the teachers were confident and they owned the new approaches. And that's a long time ago. It's probably written in some chronicle with dust on it. But it is just, to me, it's the way to do it, is to invest in the ones that we know are going to make this work. So thank you for this model. And I'm really encouraged with the alignment with what we do with Youth PAR. And with alternative internships, perhaps. I know there's somebody on here who's going to say something about that. I know. And even with No Pro and skill building. So we've got a lot of things that we do that could be a really good alignment with what you guys do. Congratulations on this great work too.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for sharing how you've seen strategies like this, models like this work. I think whenever I hear questions of folks who are really excited, they've had personal experience where they've seen this with teachers in classrooms. And we're really excited too that there are so many after school programs. There are facilitators of places of learning that may not be your traditional school who have reached out and asked to also be a part of our fellowship and learn those 6 teacher practices as well. And so it's really our goal to bring it to every place of learning that we can. And so we're always thinking about who else can we reach. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And just to kind of follow up on that, Alyssa here is commenting that it really is the key, bringing teachers in as collaborators instead of being kind of like voluntold, right, that they need to do this work. If I could follow up actually with a quick question on that, we kind of heard the impact of working on a project like this for the students, but what have educators said about their experience? And then we'll get to your question, Jacqueline, in just a second.
Yeah, so it's been really, really amazing. So when we survey teachers, 100%, which is a hard number to get to, but 100% has said that our curriculum was helpful to them in their overall teaching. We've seen 94% of teachers have actually shared that they had the toolkit essentially to then implement this in their classroom. And so we really pride ourselves on not just saying, here's what the theoretical piece is, here are the design thinking, engineering principles, and here's how you can support entrepreneurship. But we give a full, not only our curriculum, but a full toolkit so that teachers can actually know, how does this look? What does it look like? What does it sound like? How can I actually implement this? And to us, that's incredibly, incredibly important. And then the last one that we really, really love to talk about is just 78% of teachers rate Project Invent in the top 10% of their experiences as educators. And to us, I think that really comes from teachers being able to be innovators themselves, to meet other teachers from across the nation as we host our Summer Institute, not just in one particular region, but just all across the nation. And they get to build and innovate with other teachers, which is not something that they may experience in every type of professional development, which we really, really love, is making sure that teachers are appreciated and are furthering their own practice.
Sure. Kind of pulling all in the same direction. How can we help each other? Yeah, I love that. Jacqueline, yeah, please come off mute. What can we try to answer for you, or what questions do you have?
I just thank you for sharing. I didn't hear the very beginning about the curriculum and all that because I wasn't here. But it sounds just from the tail end that this is a perfect fit for our school. We do a senior expo. Our senior English teacher collaborates a cross-curricular plan with our PLTW EDD class, which is the engineering and design. So the students are planning these projects from the beginning of August all the way through March, and then they will present these projects to the community. But they have many, many layers that include protocols and websites, and it's amazing the things that they turn out. Last year, we were very fortunate. We had a winning team that was invited to NAF, and they did the de-icing robot, showcased it. So they didn't get it patented, but they talked about it, and I think just hearing those words patent and resources, and a couple weeks ago I brought in an industry speaker who promotes starting businesses, and so I just I know that all these resources that you're sharing would be very beneficial for them. Especially, she also mentioned grants too, because the students are specifically looking for funding to further develop their protocol. So I'm looking forward to making sure I receive all this information. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That really aligns with the work that we do. And definitely feel free to email me at jax@projectinvent.org. And I'm happy to connect you with our partnerships and recruitment manager, Carrie, to set up time to talk about what that might look like as we start getting geared up for our next institute this July. So the earlier we can start having those conversations, the better. So very exciting. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I dropped Jax's email there in the chat, Jacqueline, so if you want to copy it down, or whenever I upload this video, I will include all of Jax's contact info in there as well. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Wow, we have time for maybe like one more question, just to be respectful to everyone's time and make sure we get you out of here on time. Does anyone else have anything they want to ask Jax directly or hear more about while we just have a couple minutes left? Oh, I see some typing going on. So
yeah.
I was just giving a shout out to Jacqueline. She is piloting the PAR Toolkit this year.
Oh, okay.
So, and she already brought so much to the enhancement of that kit, of the work that we're doing there. So she's a thinker and an innovator and a leader. I'm so glad that you're a part of it, of this talk.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you, Jax. It looks like some folks are saying it's a great way to start the week. What a great discussion. I know it's hard to believe it's Monday already.
Yeah, happened fast.
Yeah. But I dropped your email there in the chat, and as I mentioned, when we upload the video, I will include that there as well. But what other ways can our staff, can our educators follow kind of updates from Project Invent? Are you all on social media, or do you send out a newsletter? Like, what should we be tuned into?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can certainly go to our website, projectinvent.org, and learn more about our fellowship and our work and join our newsletter. There will be a nice pop-up that comes up that says, would you like to learn more and be added to our newsletter? So certainly encourage that. You can follow us on Instagram, project_invent, on Twitter, and you can find us on LinkedIn as well. And certainly, if you know of others or are really interested, we are expanding from 150 teams this year to 400 teams, 400 student teams by next year. And so we call it our Road to 400, and our campaign just launched. So you can also see that information on our Give Lively page as well to learn more about how to support us in our Road to 400. So we certainly encourage folks to find us and follow us on any of those channels. And if you need some help or want me to send the links to you, just feel free to email me, and I'm happy to share all the ways to keep up with our project and event happenings.
Wonderful. Again, yeah, I'll upload all that info, and I'll reach out for what you were just discussing, Jax, to upload it as well. But also consider this an open invitation if you ever want to come back on the Research and Tech Talk series to talk more about it, or if you have any other projects you would like to showcase on that. I'm sure that would very much be of interest to our staff, to our educators, just to hear directly from those students as well. Any other quick questions we can throw Jax's way before the hour is complete? I'm sure folks have to run to class or run to a meeting, but I wanted to give that chance for one more question if there's anything there. And I'll stay on the line kind of after the call. Jax, if you have 5-10 minutes just to hang out, we can kind of answer anything that maybe we didn't get to here on the call.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, Dee looks like, yep. Go ahead,
Sorry
Dee.
if I'm monopolizing time. I just I thought it was interesting that you talked about pre and post surveys or questionnaires as your measure of impact. Are there other measures that you guys use? And you didn't mention what was the pre, or is it a kind of a reflective post survey?
Yeah. So we host a pre and post survey for our students as well as for our teachers and our facilitators of Project Invent. And the questions that we share with students, it really is asking them how do they rate themselves in certain areas. And so we'll ask them questions like, I feel confident in my STEM skills. And so then in our post survey, we'll ask similar questions to see if there was an increase, a change of any sort over the course of the Project Invent experience. And so we actually just a huge shout out to our partner Project Evident, which helped us to validate and update our impact metrics for both the pre and post survey so that we're making sure to use research-based questions that have been proven for young students, whether middle school or high school, that these questions can actually help to determine if there is growth when we talk about resilience, when we talk about grit, when we talk about empathy, those types of questions, we want to make sure that we present that well in our pre and post surveys. We also have a steering committee of teachers that was started by one of our amazing Project Invent team members, Lee, and that really gathers our teachers together who have worked with us for more than a year to really share their qualitative experiences with us and give us feedback on our curriculum, on our events, on supports we're providing so that we are constantly being iterative in what we're providing in Project Invent. So we do our best to make sure we have multiple ways of receiving feedback. And this year we've applied for government grant funding as well to do a research-based study of our work in this upcoming year. So yes, definitely thinking about all the ways to measure impact as often as possible.
Wonderful. I love to hear it.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end our recording. Thank you all for joining us here live and hearing more from Jax and hearing about Project Invent and the great work they're doing with students, with educators, with community partners. As I mentioned, you can find this recording on our YouTube channel, on our Research and Tech LinkedIn page, as well as our NAF Educator Facebook page. But I'll go ahead and end the recording, and we'll kind of hang out a few minutes after the call if anyone else has any questions or anything for Jax that she can answer after the call. But for now, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much.